Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today we are going to talk about a Greninja spin-off. I had wanted to do this since 2021 after I did my Decidueye spin-off video. Don't forget to check that out afterwards, but I have had this video on the table for quite a while, so I thought I really needed to talk about a spin-off from Decidueye. No, not Decidueye, Greninja. Since Greninja and Decidueye are actually my favorite two final evolutions for the starters. So I thought, why not give them both spin-offs each? Which I already did Decidueye back in 2021. Now we're here doing Greninja. So I thought, why not do a spin-off video for him? Or it, depending what gender Greninja is. But without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? For the gameplay, the game would end up being called Greninja, the Shadows of Kalos. And it would end up being an open world action adventure RPG game. The game would have you playing in a team of 3 recruits, with a total of 8 different recruits that you can get throughout the game, and each one has its own unique moveset and skill tree with a difference in typing to each recruit, which means Greninja is mandatory to have in your team, which means you can have 2 others, which you do end up starting off with 2 different recruits when you start playing the game. And the game would end up taking some elements out of Ghost of Tsushima, Ninja Gaiden, and the upcoming Assassin's Creed game set in Japan, even though we don't know what it's called yet. For the setting, the game would end up being set during an era where the Kalos War hadn't happened yet, being 1,000 years before the Kalos War. At this point in the timeline, Kalos wasn't its own independent region yet. The land of Kalos, when the game was set, was owned by Kanto before the land of Kalos got conquered and became its own region. Since Kalos was owned by Kanto at the point this game takes place, the region would heavily have Japanese elements throughout the map. And the entire Pokemon world at the point the game is set is Japanese inspired, since all the regions hadn't become independent yet. For the combat system in the game, it will trigger when enemies are in range, similar to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but the only difference is that you can swap control of different recruits throughout the fight. But Greninja is basically your overworld character, which means Greninja will be like the leader of your team, or arsenal, as whatever you want to call it. And Greninja can command recruits to perform certain attacks, similar to how Rex can in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Kratos can command Atreus in God of War. And if the player isn't in control of a recruit that isn't Greninja, you can also use stealth attacks in the overworld to instantly wipe out enemy Pokemon or humans. For your arsenal acts as your team throughout the game. You start off with Kitsuninja and Shadowl when you have finished the prologue. You have 3 recruits in your party, and you can swap out between recruits when solving puzzles and getting access to certain areas across the map. The only recruit you can't swap out is Greninja, due to him being a big part in the game's story. Similar to how you can't swap out Mario in Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. For the recruits will play a huge part within the game. Each recruit has their own unique skill set, attributes, and skill tree that you can level up as you play the game. And some areas on the map you can't access, or some puzzles can't be solved without some of these recruits. And you can complete quests throughout the map to unlock each recruit that you can use within battle. So they're all scattered throughout the map, and you can unlock them in any order you desire, which I do think would make the game like a bit harder and add a bit of challenge, not having everyone at the start but only having Kitsuninja and Shadowl, just so the game isn't too easy for players. So now we're going to get into each recruit individually. So the first one, of course, doesn't need any introduction, but Greninja, being Water Dark type. Greninja is the essential recruit and the main character in the game. All the abilities Greninja had before would be implemented into his moveset, such as Water Shuriken and some melee attacks such as Quick Attack and Pound, which would be renamed in the case of this game, since I do think Greninja could have his own melee attacks developed especially for him, just to make sure that his melee attacks aren't as accurate to the games, but would make his melee attacks a bit more unique compared to other Pokemon. And he would also have some brand new abilities on him that he could work with, such as Water Katana, where similar to how he can create shurikens out of water, he can also create a katana out of water as well. And some steam bombs, which would act as smoke bombs. Greninja won't start the game with the appearance you may know him as, but he would have 6 new forms to go through as the game progresses. So you'll start the game as when Greninja was just a rookie, and then he will climb up to be a powerful ninja Pokemon. And the 6 new forms he has would also be brought over to the mainline games as well. Now we have Kitsuninja. And you're probably wondering, BB8, how come this recruit is not a frog like Greninja is? Well, I thought instead of having your entire recruit roster being Greninjas, that would just be a bit lazy. I thought instead of using Pokemon that already exist within the games, why not bring in some brand new Pokemon that could act as recruits in the game, but can also be brought over to the mainline games as mystery gift Pokemon. But I will get into that later on. So Kitsuninja will be Fire Dark type. Kitsuninja will be a brand new Pokemon created for this game. And Kitsuninja will heavily take elements from the Kitsune, which is a type of fox within the Japanese folklore. So I thought that would have made a bit of sense to be a recruit in this game. And Kitsuninja would be the fire kunai wielder of the team. Even though there will be a few recruits that do wield kunais, her kunais can deal fire damage to enemies or when aimed for the head. And like I just said, the Kitsuninja in this game is female, even though male Kitsuninjas exist. And when you aim it for the head, it takes them out entirely. And Kitsuninja is one of the recruits you end up starting off with. And I do apologize, I don't have any art for Kitsuninja. I couldn't really find some art that would fit well for the Pokemon, so I just put some images there to the side for reference. And now, for the third recruit, we have Shadowl. Not to be mistaken with Decidueye, because its appearance is similar, but does come from the same region as Decidueye, but was brought over to Kalos. Shadowl would also be a new Pokemon created for this game. Technically, all of the new recruits are, apart from Greninja, of course. And Shadowl may take a bit of resemblance from Decidueye, but the only difference is with Shadowl is that Shadowl can use feathers for both Shurikens and kunais. But unlike Kitsuninja, its kunai feathers don't deal fire damage, but do deal ghost type damage though. And unlike Decidueye, where Decidueye uses its wings as a bow, and Decidueye has its beak out in the open, Shadowl has his face and beak covered like an actual ninja, and would end up using its wings for feather and shuriken storage. For the fourth recruit, we have Shurikat, being ghost type. Shurikat would be the stealthiest cat of them all. And if you need to approach a samurai fortress throughout the game, Shurikat would come in useful. And Shurikat can wield more smoke bombs than any other recruit in the game. And can teleport, similar to how Kiriko from Overwatch 2 can teleport, within a maximum of 10 feet of enemies in order to perform sneak attacks. Even though Shurikat is meant for being assisting the arsenal, Shurikat also wields shurikens that can come back to Shurikat, meaning that her shurikens act like boomerangs. For the fifth recruit, we have Rabbinja, being fire fighting type. Rabbinja would be the quickest of the recruits, having the highest speed stats out of all 8, and would mainly be used for melee attacks, not ranged attacks, like the other recruits. And Rabbinja can perform quick punches and can dodge very quickly, and can run really fast up walls. Like, I would say this character doesn't perform any ranged attack at all, but with the fighting type Rabbinja has, I would see Rabbinja being quite useful if you're trying to perform quick attacks, and immediate takedowns. For the 6th recruit, we have Primasuke. And don't ask why I said Ske instead of Suk. It's only because the U is sort of like silent in Japanese, if you think about it. And the naming strategy I came up with for this Pokemon is actually similar to Sosuke out of Ponyo, the Studio Ghibli movie. Yeah. And the prime part comes from primate. Yeah, that's probably where I get the name from. Primasuke is the big guy of the recruits, and also acts as a tank class Pokemon. And this Pokemon would be useful for performing certain puzzles where you need a strong recruit to get past, and makes it much easier to get access to certain collectibles. The punches that Primasuke can perform are quite powerful, but not too OP as soon as you recruit him though. But Primasuke can climb trees unlike anyone else in the team. And for the 7th recruit, we have Shurikoon. And Shurikoon would be the dart wielder. He can blow darts at enemies from up to 50 feet, which the darts can put the enemies to sleep for a brief moment. But the Shurikoon can also wield shurikens and a katana, which is sharp and deadly. So don't mess with Shurikoon or he will cut you with it. And for the 8th and final recruit within the base game, of course, is Artirrel. Artirrel can glide to specific heights in order to guide a path for the arsenal, and he can glide down to home in on enemies to sneakily attack on them. And Artirrel can use a nunchuck style weapon as its primary weapon. And you may have seen what I've done here with the recruits. I thought I would base each one off an animal as seen in a forest, but Shurikat is the only one that isn't. For the skill tree, each recruit will have a skill tree of their own, which you can improve on the skills that each character already has and able to expand their capabilities that each of their moves has. The skill tree system would work similarly to the skill tree systems from God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, and Spider-Man. I could see a huge potential for a skill tree system in the game, because it could actually expand the attributes of your characters in the base game, but the online would have its own separate skill trees. But I am going to get to the online in a second. For the customization, you can make your recruits uniquely yours by making or hooking up some recruits with armor that you can put on them, which can raise the attributes of your recruits. And you can use coloured apricorns that you can find around the map, which apricorns in the games are normally used for Pokeballs, but you can actually go to a dye shop in a village within the game, trade some coloured apricorns, and you can get dye in order to change the colour of specific armour But you can't do that to Amiibo armor. But I will get to the Amiibo part in a second. Some pieces of armor are equipped with unique abilities, which do make the battles even more action-packed. And like I just said, you can get armor and weapons after Pokemon through Amiibo. For the online, I am fully aware that this game may not need online, but the online would work in multiple ways. The first way is with online multiplayer, not Mythology mode, which I will get into in a sec, but the online multiplayer allows you to play the game with a friend in either local or online play. And you can help a friend on a part you are stuck on and get tucked in to some action-packed moments with friends. And the second way is similar to Ghost of Tsushima Legends, called the Greninja Shadows of Kalos Mythology, which is a standalone online mode from the base game. So, for Greninja the Shadows of Kalos Mythology, you can buy Mythology mode on its own for the price as shown above, or play it built in when you buy the base game. Mythology mode is not DLC. It is the online mode, but if you don't own Greninja the Shadows of Kalos, the base game, you can buy Mythology mode as a taster before you buy the base game. And similar to Kirby's Dream Buffet, the online mode would have no microtransactions whatsoever. But you can unlock some brand new rewards through Mythology mode that you can use between the base game and online. But Mythology mode will have its own standalone skill tree system from the base game. And it would be an online co-op mode similar to the Ghost of Tsushima Legends. You have the option to play as one of the 8 recruits you can unlock within the game, which means from Mythology mode you have access to all of them from the ground up. It's just not in the base game. And there would be a huge variety of modes to get into here. And with quick play, you can just hop into an online match. If you are low on time and you need to find an online game to play, you could just dive into Mythology mode and just play online as quick as you can. The story mode, which means Mythology mode will have a story mode of its own, like a PvE similar to Overwatch 2 and Fortnite Save the World. And yes, it does have a story of its own, which will expand on the core game. The versus mode is where you can face off each other in a fight for glory to see which ninja is truly the best. Survival is where you can face off waves of enemies which you and your team mates have to fight together. And for the challenges, this mode would work similarly to Junkenstein's Revenge in Overwatch, where you can perform certain tasks, but with twists, in order to get rewards that you can use in both Mythology mode and the base game. But a Nintendo Switch Online subscription will be required to play Mythology mode. But It will launch with a trial, which you can get to try out the game for free for a limited time, but then you would have to buy Mythology mode in order to keep playing. For the plot, I know we're like 25 minutes in, but I guess now I describe everything you can do in the game. Why not get in to a sample of the story, but not all of it though, because it might take too much time within the video. So the game would start with Greninja running on top of a Japanese castle, ready to infiltrate. And then it flashes back to when Greninja was just a small Froakie in a lake in Kalos. A pack of Frogadier had only just settled into their new habitat after their habitat got raided by the samurai. The Froakie wanders out of the pond and into the open just to see a samurai right in front of him. Froakie then runs back as the samurais attempt to attack him, but unfortunately Froakie leads them back to the habitat. The Froakies and the Frogadier living in the habitat get kidnapped, but are unfortunately killed off screen. Sorry if that gets dark, but apart from Froakie, which does make it out alive, the Froakie does run away from the samurai and manages to make it to a cave where he can't be spotted. He does end up hiding in the cave for days, all damaged and swollen, until a mysterious hand reaches into the cave, and it wasn't a human hand, it was a frog's hand. The Froakie hopped onto its hand, and then we are introduced to Grensei, the mythical Pokemon who looked after Froakie and takes him back to the Grensei temple in the highest mountains of ancient Kalos. It then shows a montage of Grensei raising Froakie up to a rookie Greninja, and it then cuts back to Greninja about to infiltrate a fortress. The tutorial then begins, and after the tutorial, we are then introduced to recruits Kitsuninja and Shadowl. But then a mysterious Pokemon shows up. It looks big, strong, and ready to fight. We are then introduced to the main villain of the game, being Shokami. Grensei and Shokami end up fighting each other, meaning that Greninja, Kitsuninja, and Shadowl have to help him out in order to stop him. They are defeated, but with Grensei critically hurt, Grensei then says to Greninja before he dies, Go and find the other recruits. The shadows of Kalos are in your hands. Now you see where the title comes from. We can't let Shokami win. And then Grensei then turns into a bright light as he starts to fade away, as he is sent to the spirit realm, which will have involvement later in the game. But with Grensei gone, Greninja has to go on a mission to find the other recruits in order to defeat Shokami. And just to expand on the plot a bit, the characters, Grensei and Shokami, I'm literally going to describe them now, but Grensei being the frog sensei Pokemon, with the type being Water Ghost. The height of 7'2", weighing 1100 kilograms, and doesn't really have a habitat because Grensei is or was a mythical Pokemon. So he literally doesn't have a habitat. And the gender being male. Grensei acts as the guardian Pokemon of the Grensei Temple high in the mountains of Kalos. This Pokemon was the only of its kind, until Grensei dies very early in the story of the game, making it a mythical Pokemon. And Grensei was a Froakie that got separated from its pack of Froakies and Frogadiers, but at the time, the Greninja species didn't exist. And it was concerned by the samurai, so he ran away from the samurai, ending up miles away from the pack. So he ended up training himself into a Greninja and then Grensei. And then he built the Grensei Temple and uses spirit magic in order to protect it from danger. And if it wasn't for Grensei, the Greninja species wouldn't exist. Another character we have here being Shokami, being the samurai otter Pokemon not associated with Samurott in any form, with the type being steel fighting, the height being 9'6", and the weight being 1,274 kilograms. And just like with Grensei, Shokami doesn't have a habitat either. Shokami acts as the main villain of the game. Shokami did once live as a small otter Pokemon, which isn't known, and it was abandoned by its trainer at a young age. So he did step on his feet and watch the Froakies and the Frogadiers get kidnapped by the samurai and train himself to become a samurai until one day Shokami gets caught by the leader of the samurai and then befriending them and bonding together. Until one night Shokami turned against the samurai and literally just assassinated the leader of the samurai in the sleep, making the first Pokemon to ever lead an organization. And with its armor being immune to Pokeballs, this Pokemon is quite difficult to catch. And with both Shokami and Grensei being mythical Pokemon, the only way you can obtain them is through mystery gifts within the mainline Pokemon games, or the Amiibo within Pokemon Unlimited, which I've not done a concept video yet, but I will get into the Amiibo in a sec. For the Amiibo to coincide with Greninja the Shadows of Kalos would not only come with 1, but with 10 Amiibo. 8 normal scale Amiibos for the recruits, with more to come as the DLC starts to roll out, and 2 8-inch Amiibo for Grensei and Shokami, with the compatible games being Greninja the Shadows of Kalos. Tap in any Amiibo from the Greninja Shadows of Kalos series to unlock new abilities for each recruit that can only be used when the Amiibo is tapped. In the case of Grensei, tap in the 8-inch Amiibo to summon Grensei's ghost, which will give you a bit of support throughout the fight. And in the case of any Pokemon Amiibo from the Smash or Detective Pikachu series, you can unlock weapons and armor themed after Pokemon. And for Pokemon Unlimited, tap in any Amiibo from the Greninja Shadows of Kalos series in order to be transported back in time to where Greninja Shadows of Kalos takes place 3,000 years before the modern era of Pokemon. There, you will fight the Amiibo you have tapped in. You battle it, and then you tap it again to catch it, which does act as the read write feature for this Amiibo. For Detective Pikachu 2, you can unlock new cases themed after the game. For Decidueye Wrath of the Forest, which I have done a concept video for, by the way, you can tap them in to bring in a companion that can help you throughout the battle, but you can only tap in each Amiibo once an hour. So which means you can't tap in the same figure, but you can tap in different figures to make it a bit less, difficult. And finally, for Plusle and Minun Attack of the City, you just unlock colour palettes for Plusle and Minun. For the DLC for Greninja The Shadows of Kalos will be split into 2 waves, each having new content to offer, which will consist of the expansion pass. Wave 1 will give you access to 4 new recruits. The Tower of Lumiose appears on the map, which does give you access to the Lumiose trials, as well as new challenges and quests to do around the map, with new armor and weapons to find. Wave 2 will give you a new story scenario, 4 new recruits, giving us 16 in total once the DLC is finished, a new mode within Mythology mode, and just like with Wave 1, there's new challenges and quests to do around the map with new armor and weapons to find. For the release strategy, the release strategy would be that during a Pokemon Presents, sometime within the summer, being sometime around E3, the Pokemon Company would announce their multi-game deal with Bandai Namco, and that they would go on to say, we have partnered up with Bandai Namco to create some brand new spin-off games focused on fan favourite Pokemon. And yes, Bandai Namco and the Pokemon Company would develop this, because we have seen a lot of games developed by Bandai Namco that are based on Pokemon, such as New Pokemon Snap and Pokken Tournament. So I could see Bandai Namco making it, but Nintendo ending up publishing it. They show off the first look trailers without gameplay for both Decidueye The Wrath of the Forest and Greninja The Shadows of Kalos. And they announced that they have been hard at work on these games in order to expand on the Pokemon world and to explore the origins of the Greninja and the Decidueye species. And they confirmed that Decidueye The Wrath of the Forest would launch in March, and Greninja The Shadows of Kalos would launch in fall of that year. In the February Direct, the Pokemon Company will appear and confirm that Greninja The Shadows of Kalos would launch in September of that year. And they do give us a brief reminder that Wrath of the Forest would be coming that March. In E3 of that year, more gameplay would end up being shown, as a playable demo will be shown at E3, showing off what the game can do. And in August, a Nintendo Direct dedicated to Shadows of Kalos will air on the Nintendo official YouTube channel, revealing the Amiibo the story, and the expansion pass. And Shadows of Kalos will end up launching that September with positive reception from Pokemon fans and critics. Like, I don't really see this game selling well, but I could see it being good. Only because Pokémon Tournament didn't really sell that good. And new Pokemon Snap wasn't quite there. So, with spin-offs focused on individual Pokemon, I could see it being a step up from Pokémon Tournament and new Pokemon Snap. So guys, what did you think of my concept video for Greninja the Shadows of Kalos? I have wanted to do this since January of 2021, but I couldn't think of how the game could play at the time I did the Decidueye the Wrath of the Forest concept video almost 2 years ago now, which is insane. And it has almost been 2 years since I did Puzzle and Mining as well. And I thought covering Greninja this far out is quite insane. And the fact I am yet to cover Delphox and Pichu, as confirmed by the most recent UFOs Appeared episode, there is still a lot more concept videos to come. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another new video like this one. And I will see you all in another concept video like this one. BB8 out.